Are we ready to go?
Just a second. Just waiting for
Okay.
Enrique to give us the okay, we're good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This will be the work session of October 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Tonight, we are going to have the Community Alternative Learning Center present on their current program and their vision and needs for the future. And Jonathan, do you want to introduce your team for us?
Yes, so on the call here, we have Melissa Horn. She's our IA that's been with us for 9 years. Stephen Bernard, social studies teacher, has been with us for, this is your 4th year, Stephen. And then Bailey Wynant, she is brand new to us. She's the first counselor, full-time counselor that we've had at Calc.
Yay.
We're excited about that.
Well, you can just go ahead. Is Brian Burke with you also tonight or no?
So Brian I believe is trying to get here. He's actually supervising the JV football game right now, so he may be joining us, but we're working on it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead, Jonathan, if you're all set and ready to go.
I am. So I suppose I'll put up our presentation here just briefly, the first part of it anyway. So my intention here is to take you on a little bit of a tour. I know that some of you have been here. Kate, I've met you here a couple times before, and some of the others, I recognize the names that have passed through the doors here, but most of our visitors are accidental. They make a wrong turn or they're heading for the warehouse. So our location is out of the way, but it is what we've had to work with here for, I think this is nearly 15 plus years that a Calc, or I believe this was Create actually in the first year or so that it was here, but then Calc for the last 15 years. So I will take you on a little tour. So let's take a tour. I'm gonna stop my share and then I'll just be on my webcam. I hope not to make everybody dizzy. I did do a practice run and I didn't make myself too dizzy, but okay, now we've changed the camera angle. So this is the largest room. This is my room. It's actually, its geometry isn't that much different than a normal classroom at the high school. We have it kind of spread out right now because of COVID, just to give students extra space. Then we have a long hallway, very narrow hallway, which, even with a few students in here can seem pretty tight. Our front office is here. There's the doors to come in from the outside. Down a little further this hallway. So this area in here is where the food comes in every day. There's a warmer there in the cooler for the milk. This is where we load up the cart and then bring it out the hallway for the students to grab their lunches off of every day. And this door back through here, that's Bailey's office. It's not our ideal place for a counseling office because it's like kind of way back, tucked into the middle of everything, the catacombs, if you will. But this is what we have to work with this year because we have a sick room that we had to make or the counseling office became the new sick room for COVID. But when that's our normal counseling office, but this one is it actually used to be the counseling office a long time ago, and we're like, this does not work, but we have to work with it this year. So, okay, a couple of bathrooms on my right, one small IA room, and this is Stephen's room. So this is a very long, narrow classroom that has inherent problems because of its geometry. But we've made the best of it and worked with it the best we could. down a little bit further here. This is the English classroom. Michelle works in here, Michelle Coleman. She's not on the call right now. She just had a grandbaby, and she's with her daughter and the grandbaby in the hospital right now. She's currently teaching Discovery, which is what we'll talk about later. But again, it's a pretty small classroom. And as always, we make it work how it works best for our students and us. It's by far the best decorated room. And then we'll go back down to my classroom. Hopefully nobody's getting too dizzy.
Hey, Jonathan, while you're walking, where do kids eat? I mean, is it in the hallways, or is there, last time it was like the back parking lot? What's kind of the current practice?
For the lunches?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 classrooms open for lunches, and with our numbers right now, it's not too crowded. But so they'll be in my classroom. They'll be probably the majority of them will be in here, and then the other classroom, Michelle's classroom, way down on the right, is the other classroom we have open. When it's nice, we have a supervised area out in the back. It's just an asphalt area with a basketball hoop and some nice picnic tables. We got some really nice picnic tables out there, but when it's raining like this, they don't go out there.
Thanks.
All right. Hopefully that's the last of the moving around. All right, I'm going to share my screen again, and then we'll go through our presentation. And I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity of being here and presenting something that I care deeply about. And I know the staff that works at Calc cares deeply about it as well. We find ourselves in the position here at Calc in many different roads led us here, and it's kind of it's humbling to be able to work in a place like this and know that there's a purpose here that we have, that we are fulfilling for some students that otherwise might not make it, and so we all feel that sense of mission in what we do at Calc. And it'll come through as you follow along with the presentation here, hopefully. So, like I said, the Calc has been here in this building for 15 years, and relatively it hasn't changed much. The office has changed around a little bit. We have now a window in the office, but other than that, pretty much how everything is how it was that long ago. This is an outline of what we hope to get through as we're going here today. So some quick facts. We'll introduce the staff and our mission. We'll talk about Discovery and our credit recovery options, and then our community partners. So currently we have 40 students, which is atypical. I think the pandemic, COVID, has seriously impacted how we've gotten students. We didn't get new students referred last year, and so we kind of lost out on some numbers by that. And also, students are having a harder time going to school, and how they're feeling, their mental health and things like that, I think is influencing how many numbers we have. So 17 of our students are 5th-year seniors, 14 are seniors, and then 9 are juniors or sophomores. We don't typically take freshmen. We have had them in the past, but typically we like to get them a little further along in their school. So when they're juniors or seniors is best, when they have maybe some they experience some failures, so it gets them ready to do something different than that. And that's what we are, something different. We have migrant education students, 6 of those, 2 ESL, ELL students, and then 8 students on IEPs that are either SPED or a 504. So like I said, this is an atypical amount of students total. So let's take a look now at a typical year, and let's go back to, we'll go back to 2018, 2019 was our last basically typical year. 2019, 2020, I would say, since the pandemic started in March, it wasn't a necessarily typical year. We usually have a few more students that come in after the time that we actually had to shut down school. So on a typical year, 82 students would be something that would be a typical year. Not all of them are here at one time because some graduate out and then others come in. We take in students every 6 weeks into our discovery program, and then that's our entry point into Calc, is that discovery program, and Melissa is going to talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. And I was looking at the statistics and counting how many of those 82 that we had in 2018-19 actually have graduated by now. And 66 of them, around 80%, have graduated of those 82. There's 2 that are still currently enrolled they actually came in as freshmen. But we're hoping to get them graduated too. So that would bump it up a little bit more. So I'm the lead teacher. My name is Jonathan Lovengust. We have Stephen Bernard. You've met him here, social studies teacher. Michelle Coleman, English teacher. We have Dave Safuni. He is a retired engineer. He's working as an instructional assistant here with us. Melissa, she is our sage, our guru of discovery, and also been here the longest, well, tied with me, I guess. We're tied at 9 years, or this is our 9th year. Lance Taylor is our newest member. He is instructional assistant, just joined us 2 weeks ago. And then Bailey Wynett, she's our school counselor. She is historic as well because she is the first ever that has been full-time at Calc. Jenny Acosta, she's our school secretary. And then we have a youth contact counselor that comes and joins us a couple days a week. Her name's Taylor Elliott, and she's does family therapy and youth therapy. So our cornerstone of everything we do is directed by this discovery program that we brought in 2015, 2016. Former lead teacher Jessica Pierce researched this program, thought it would be a good fit. Her and I went around to a couple of different schools that were running the program and looked at it and thought, wow, this is good. This is a great program. We want to bring it to our students here at Calc. And we think it would really help them and really help our school just become, part of our name, community. So after we decided to do that, we trained ourselves with the help of some people from Newburgh and Tillamook. Got ourselves trained to do discovery the best we could for our first year. And then we did Discovery 1.0. So Discovery 1.0, the whole school did it at the same time. We had 3 classrooms of Discovery going at the same time. And I think, it's one of our favorites just because everybody was doing it. We were able to do all the activities, kind of together, and all the content, everybody was talking about it, at the same time. Really, really kind of built our community as a really strong community in that way. And then after that first round of discovery, we are now at our 22nd. We are 22nd class of discovery now, and we found that every time we do discovery, we grow close to that group of students. They grow close to each other. We have some community building going on inherently in the instruction, but also just because of their association and the activities we do. And Melissa will tell you a little bit more about that. Go ahead, Melissa.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. We're ecstatic about going forward and hoping to have a Calc 2.0. So the objectives of this program are threefold. Develop a strong sense of community and establish positive support systems for all students. To teach, practice, and provide feedback on positive social skills. To reinforce the culture of the classroom and school and ensure that all students realize what is expected of them and what they can expect from the staff. It's really important for our kids to have a safe space. A lot of them kind of go through something in their life, right? Some sort of trauma, and we get to know them and their background and their stories. And they begin to trust our community and respect that. And they come in and do an amazing job, and they finally graduate, as you can see with our numbers. Next slide, Jonathan. So I'm going to kind of give you a little background of what we do. And our discovery program, we teach them some positive social skills necessary to thrive at school, not just at school, but at home and at work, out in the real world. We practice it through instruction, teacher modeling, practicing and positive feedback. Students become better communicators. They gain clarity and discover a renewed sense of optimism. They begin to believe in themselves again, in their family and their peers. The core of this program is a student-centered, no-nonsense, skill-based curriculum taught in 6 sequential units. So as you can see, number 1 is effective groups. So in this first week, we teach students the importance of effective groups. We begin practicing essential group skills, individual, competitive, and different group skills. The unit emphasizes cooperation and synergy, appropriate risk-taking, clear communication, and positive mental attitudes. The second week, we learn a lot about anger management. This is probably one of the favorites for most students. It's a cognitive approach to managing anger and frustration. We teach students to reframe their anger and use it as a positive force in their lives. And this model helps students identify their anger triggers and explore other options. In the third week, communication skills or transactional analysis. We break these communication into modes. It could be okay child, not okay child, adult mode, and critical parent and nurturing parent. And this really kind of puts characteristics to these modes and what it looks like in language, in tone of voice, different things like that. And it really teaches the kids different blocks that they could come into. It teaches them, it practices them, and provides feedback on role play scenarios. The students demonstrate knowledge of these skills by writing and performing these final role plays. And they also will pass quizzes and tests about all the content. The assertiveness training, the fourth week, kind of aligns with this communication skills because it really puts those characteristics into those modes. We learn the difference between what aggressive looks like, assertiveness, and passive behavior. And then that's where we couple it into the adult modes or parent modes or child modes. They identify their typical behavior types and role play assertive responses. While the model only takes a short time to learn, it is a skill that students can practice and teachers can reinforce continually. And we practice all the time. I've been through many discovery groups and it takes a long time. Problem solving is we teach it as if it were a math problem. There are steps to problem solving. It's a systematic way using 5 basic steps, and we use the hand. 1, define the problem. And number 2, list your options. Number 3, choose one. Number 4, put it into action. And number 5, evaluate it. Did it work? If not, go back to number 2. Let's choose a different option. So these might seem basic, and we should model this. I tried to do this all the time with my own family. This unit is an umbrella skill of the program. It takes time, and students need to be aware of the importance of approaching problems in their lives in an effective manner. So we also kind of teach the 5 and 6 kind of together, which is conflict resolution, and conflict resolution is usually with another person or someone else. These skills build directly on the communication skills, assertiveness training, and problem solving units. Students identify the difference between problems and interpersonal conflicts. And then we teach them about a systematic approach or dealing with conflict in a positive manner. Again, we model it by role playing, feedback, and transferring the skills outside of class, trying them out in the real world. We want students to be assertive and have the courage and skills necessary to resolve conflicts in a constructive manner. So some of the other things that we do during these weeks is, like I said, we have role plays, and they're required to have certain things done by this end of the 6-week period. In the morning, first thing when we get to school, and this goes for the whole school, and they continue it after discovery, we will always have a circle up question of the day. It's a good way for us to check in with the student, and it's a way to give resources to them if they're feeling like a 2. So it's a 1 to 2. What's your emotion? And then we have a question of the day. Sometimes it's really light, sometimes it's a little deep. But again, getting to know the student's story and their background allows them to trust us to kind of come into their world, and then we'll go on to their goals, which is graduating. We also do a daily activity within there. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but Michelle is teaching Discover and I'm co-teaching, and I can't tell you how many discoveries I've been in since the 22, a lot. But we try to do activities because it's a way for students to get up, stretch, do something different and get them involved. They get to meet their classmates and do something that's a little bit more fun than just taking notes every day. We also do a ropes course challenge. Most of the time it's tree to tree, but we've been to Tillicum, and we're looking into 2 others, being that there's rain and the winter's coming. And the ropes course challenge is, I call it a challenge by choice. They are required to go to the course, and it is important to us that they support their classmates and their teammates. But it's a challenge by choice because they can choose how high they go, and they're facing their own fears. So that is also required. Another requirement is to write an autobiography about themselves. And we have 10 units, and it goes from the time that they were born, like how much did you weigh, birth facts, all the way to what brought you here and what's your future. And it's really important to for them to give a story of their life so they can reflect on it. And so we can also know their background ahead of time. Another thing that we do is we do an art project with our groups, and it changes. If you went into our school, we have different projects around the school. We've done glass work, we've done birdhouses, all kinds of different things, and it's a really great sense of community. And since all the other kids in full day have done that, they always kind of are interested in what the next class is going to do. We also try to have the youth counselor get involved with them to kind of like meet up and see how it's going, and kind of have those resources as well. Again, that was kind of just a quick overview of what our Discovery program offers. I think everybody should take it. The whole staff at our district would probably be in love with this program. I think it has brought nothing but good things to our community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Yeah, like I said, Melissa is she's our champion for Discovery, and the amount of times that she's gone through it, and she's not lost any enthusiasm for it at all. And I think probably, it's different every time I teach Discovery. It's different every time because of the group of students that you get to know. And they then become part of your family community of the school. Rationale for bringing this up, I think, is that we could do this for a lot more students with a different facility, one that is conducive to the types of programs we're trying to do here, especially Discovery, having the different geometries of classrooms and different shape of a building could really add a lot to it for activities, as well as for just connecting with students with each other. It's a great program. I wish all the students in the high school could have it too. And I think, a lot of the counselors feel that way too, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Well, so I went through and checked off all of the students that I could think of from the beginning of Discovery. And it looks like we've served nearly 250, maybe a little bit more. And then looking at their graduation rate from those students that went through Discovery, it looks like it's around 80% graduation rate for them. So that kind of mirrors that one class, 2018, 2019, that one year, the typical year that I was talking about, that 80% of their students that graduate Discovery usually go on to graduate high school. We have some testimonials here from just the most recent Discovery class. This is one I taught. Elizabeth says, after going through Discovery, I felt connected to the group. I was able to manage my emotions better, and I was more comfortable speaking assertively so that other people's expectations would not stand in the way of my success. She got an A, by the way, for Discovery. A on every test too. She's a junior. She will end up graduating early. And then Kieran, I came to realize Calc's intention was to help me graduate, and this helped me get my anger under better control. Staff showed me there are no roadblocks to my success except those I make. Kieran. All right, here's some pictures from Discovery. Some silly activities we do, some silly hats that we wear, all designed to bring us closer together. If you do silly stuff with the community, you're gonna feel closer to them. And of course, there's some ropes course stuff here. This is tree to tree, and then the front of our building. So if you haven't been to our building, this is what the front of the building looks like there with the. Let's see. Oh, that's one of Michelle's first ones, I think, isn't it, Melissa? That's back there a ways. So that's a good one. Another thing that we do really well at Calc is our credit recovery program. Our credit recovery program, well, one of the many reasons students are referred to Calc is because they're substantially behind on credits. Looking at the data recently, I was astounded again. Maybe it's just because I'm a math teacher, I don't know. But I was astounded by the class ranking. There's a number down at the bottom of each of their transcripts that shows their class rank. And when we first get students into Calc, their class rank is like down in the bottom 10 of their class. Pretty safe bet that most of them are down there, at least in the bottom 10%. So the bottom 40 or so. But the ones that I looked at just recently, they were like, I think we had like 256 out of 456 out of 457 was one of our students. And they just don't have any credits, right, for the first couple of years. And that, especially right now, because COVID made a lot of our students miss a year and a half. They were not connected to anything that was productive for them in their education. So now they're here and connected to Discovery. So what we do is we take a look at their transcript and see all these things that they have Fs in. So each of our teachers will go through and do this. Melissa does this. She has a whole binder of all the students' transcripts, and it has exactly what they did, what they have, and what they need. And then we'll go even deeper than the transcript. We'll look at their grade books from the classes that they had at the high school. And we'll go through and look at each part of that and see, well, did they pass this proficiency? Did they pass anything? And if they did, what we can do is add that in the stuff that they're proficient in, and then add in the other units that they need to do in order to get that credit recovered. So that's in essence our credit recovery program. We can do this either by, we have an online credit recovery or online class program called Odyssey, where they can get to any of their classes and work on them there. In terms of social studies, science, math, we do on Khan Academy a little bit differently than Odyssey Ware. And in English is predominantly direct instruction. So with our English class, Michelle does a very good job of looking through their transcript and their grade books and seeing exactly what they need to finish up some of the courses that they may have done work in, but they didn't finish all the work necessary to pass that. So that's how she would do credit recovery in English. And then of course, after they get done with their credit recovery things, we get them into their original credit things. So that we have a little bit more options in and how to get that to them. I want to highlight this example student, Jonathan, and this is a picture of Jonathan right here. He was in my Discovery 17 at the beginning of 2019 school year, 2019. So this was our pandemic year, right? This is when pandemic hit. But at the beginning of the year, everything was great. No problems. We were rolling along nicely. And Jonathan, I will never forget him. He met me in front of the school on the first day that staff was required to show up. He was there before me, like at around 7 or so. He had ridden his bike all the way from the other side of town. And he was very quiet and shy, but he communicated to me that he wanted to go to school. And I was like, well, you guys start next week. And I'd be happy to have you come here. You just got to make sure that you've registered correctly and that you're going to be here. And he did. He registered correctly, and on the first day of school, he showed up. And again, very quiet and very shy. And watching him progress through Discovery was very dramatic and phenomenal. Really, he went from being shy and kind of reserved to being assertive and communicating what he needed, and gaining some really great friends. And I think Discovery was pivotal for him because his history was he didn't go to school at all. He had been out of school for 3 years. He was registered to go to school, but he would not go. So it got to a point, he was 18 now, and he had 0 credits. So he came through Discovery, did a great job in Discovery, worked hard, and then proceeded to gain credits just because of his really hard work and his sticking to it and his focus that he somehow mustered in the change he wanted to make. And he ended up graduating 2021. He graduated for 2 years of school from 0 credits to 24 credits. Was utterly phenomenal for this kid to do. And he struggled with some things, but he worked hard. And I think he worked hard because of his feeling of connection to our community that the Discovery program provided him. There was many Zoom calls in the middle of the summer where Jonathan and I would work on some math. And he didn't like math, but he liked me. and because of Discovery. So we got through it, and he will always be one of my favorite kids to work with through this program and at Calc. I'm going to turn this time now over to Bailey. Bailey, if you want to go ahead and go through this slide.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so my name is Bailey Winans, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to talk with you guys tonight. I'm excited to be the first school counselor that's ever been at Calc, and I'm also excited to kind of have a fresh slate in order to build the counseling program to fit the needs of our students at Calc. I'm also excited about eventually starting to teach the Discovery program in the future as well. I really enjoy the program. I think it's really beneficial to our students and their personal success. The students that come to Calc, they're normally sent here most of the time with this negative idea or mindset that they've done something wrong or they're like labeled as a bad kid. And I've heard that from a lot of when I've been talking to some of our students about their first impressions coming to Calc. So it's one of my biggest hopes to create a space where students can feel like they can make mistakes and still retain their dignity. We want students to feel like they have a safe place to be themselves and try new things, even if it does mean making mistakes or failing the first time. We want them to feel like they have at least one supportive adult in their life and that they can come to, and we want students to feel empowered to take control of their futures by creating a solid plan for after high school with the assistance of the school counselor. COVID has been a huge learning experience, and it's taken a huge toll on all of us, but especially difficult for these students because they've lacked that classroom connection for almost 2 years. So mental health is at an all-time low right now for a large portion of our students. And for a lot of them, this meant that they missed crucial years of their teenage lives where they navigate maturity and grasp understanding of what's expected of them in school, like we normally start to see in like middle school or freshman and sophomore years. Students were socially isolated from their peers, and they lost valuable personal skills like communication and conflict resolution. Some of our students were quarantined in homes or in areas where they didn't feel like they had support from an adult or even had livable conditions, like they didn't have proper food or water or money to pay bills, and perhaps even face homelessness. There's such a strong need for counseling services right now because of this, and I'm excited and hopeful to provide these students with support and resources to get them back in the swing of things with in-person learning. Since there's never been a counselor at Calc, there may be some stigma around wanting to talk to the counselor or utilizing counseling services. So my future hopes are to address these stigmas and make counseling a norm by having some type of counseling center or area at Calc. I believe that we can create a safe place and an accepting place where students can receive the help and services that they need. So for starters, there isn't really a dedicated counseling office right now. I have an office, but it's kind of like a room inside of a room out of the way for students to access, like you guys saw in the tour that Jonathan gave us. I think that having a full counseling center that's easily identified with an office for myself and maybe an office for Taylor, who is our youth and family therapist, because right now we're currently sharing and switching off between my office and potentially even more counselors in the future. I think it would also be nice to have some sort of like a conference room dedicated for us to have meetings with students or parents or just staff in general. I think it'd be nice to also have an area where we could have like a clothing donation room or a food pantry and other resources that our students can access during the day. And maybe some type of sensory room or a cool down room where students can come when they need to like take a break from a high stress encounter, or they just need a place to work independently in a quiet area. I think that'd be something that students would really utilize. And I think that it would also be great to start incorporating some of the resources they have at the main building, like peer mediation or having counseling TAs, which can provide our students with like meaningful opportunities to gain credit while they're making while they're making a difference in our community, which is a big part of Calc. So we want our students to just have the same counseling opportunities as the students at the main high school. And I think that these suggestions could help provide that.
Thank you, Bailey. Stephen is going to go through some of our community partners.
Thanks, Jonathan. Some community partners we've worked with in the past and continuing to do so, and hope to expand some of these partnerships in the future, include Eden Acres, an environmental education nonprofits that is probably familiar to many of you on the board. They provide the expertise around the school garden programs throughout the district. And boy, we'd love to have a school garden and in our new facility. Michelle was instrumental in getting a partnership with Portland Center Stage. These are highly produced plays in the Portland metro area that we bus the kids to. For many, this is the first time they've experienced theater live, and it's a wonderful enrichment program. Foodways, Nana Cardoon, we've worked with them in the past, and with that future garden, we would love to be able to partner with them again, maybe with like a kitchen. I don't want to get too far out in front of our wish list, but they've been great partners, as has Pacific University. We have some of our students going there this semester right now to earn some fine arts credit with their theater department, getting them kind of out of their shells, giving them a little exposure to higher ed. We're fortunate in the current location to be so close to clean water services, where students can access the Fernhill wetlands and have kind of an outdoor lab there in that space. Again, with this new outdoor space, outdoor lab would be phenomenal. One of the things that we've done, and we'll hope to continue to do so with our kids in their neighborhoods, oftentimes working in classrooms with siblings, is to do some peer literacy, reading, kind of being helpful instructional assistants, if you will, at the elementary schools where they come from. And lastly, a community partner we've had is the Oregon Army National Guard. They've been very gracious with allowing us to use their space at the Armory for doing larger indoor activities. We've also had students volunteer to go to the Oregon Army National Guard's Guard for a Day program and earn or document hours of physical activity that they can put toward their PE log.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, we have this list and many more that we've been in contact with over the years, but I think having Calc be a center for learning with their help for not only the students of Calc, but also the community, I think would be a really great thing to continue to move forward if we get a new building too, especially kind of design it with them in mind. Our new building wish list. Well, you saw the kitchen that we have down the hallway right there in front of Bailey's office. You know, having a place where food can be made. And one of the students I was intending to have come to this meeting initially before I knew it was going to be a presentation of this, he brought it up to me. He's like, man, is there anything we can do about the food? And so I think, you know, he eventually will be wanting to talk, but this one, I think we had enough to talk about. But the food that comes over is not great. It would be much better to have something we could make on campus, or at least have something that makes it more fresh and healthy. You know, the outdoor garden idea is great, not only for beautifying the school, but also to provide some hands-on learning stuff with the students and have them be invested in that beautification. Really into outdoor classrooms. I think getting students into the outdoors and getting their hands dirty in the dirt and doing stuff outside and just in nature, and you know, is just a phenomenal way for learning and interest in investing in their own learning. one of the things that came up is something like a maker space with tools and things like that to make stuff. I think that would be a good addition to an alternative program. Recording studio, a gymnasium or a small auditorium. There's also like a conference room that Bailey brought up too. Somewhere to have a meeting area where we could all meet together. Right now, my room is the default meeting area because it's the biggest, but I also don't want to have all 40 students down here right now either, because the space requirements for social distancing is just, wouldn't work. So having an area where we can meet all together, either outside or inside, maybe both, would be something on our wish list, I think. LEED certification building. So that, I guess that's a sustainable best practices for sustainability. I think, you know, if they're going to build a new school for Calc, let's have it be something to be super proud of in every way. And all right. Oh, counseling office. I couldn't see the bottom one there. So counseling office and center, you heard Bailey mention that as well. I think, you know, over the last several years without a school counselor, we really kind of, you know, it's been hard to figure out what to do and where to send students as there's you know, that need counseling or need to talk to a counselor, or you know, all the other things that the counselor does. But having a counseling office and center and making mental health you know, less stigmatized in a normal practice, especially in this time, is, I think, important. Oh, okay. So some wish list CTE options, culinary / agriculture. I mean, if we're going to be out in a field or right next to a field, it would be sure fun and nice to have some sort of agriculture focus that we could work with. Environmental studies, of course, too. I'm excited about the, you know, the location proposed, perhaps that would be involved in something we could do. Part of the maker space could be a small engine or mechanic or automotive repair type area. Audio engineering, the recording studio would be that, and design / art. Our students sometimes, you know, we don't have much here in terms of things to do hands-on work with, but I think that's a great need. Just from working with Charlene Murdoch from Nana Cardoon Foodway. She took several of our students over to the Cornelius shelter, homeless shelter, and, you know, them working on making meals for those people was very meaningful to them. And, you know, that hands-on kind of thing, even, you know, those that struggle to do regular classwork could excel at something like hands-on things. And that's something that I think we need to build into the new program or the new building, Calc 2.0. All right, so on the next couple of slides here, there's just some information. I think if Kathy sent a PDF to you, you can go through it and look at some of the more details of some of the things that we do. But right now, I think that's all of our presentation that we're going to go through. So I can turn the time back over to David, or if there's any questions, we can answer them.
I think we can take some questions. I really appreciate the depth that you went in here. So I appreciate the kind of depth on the discovery program. Coming from Newburgh, I have a deep appreciation for what it does for kids who have experienced some failure and helping them really try to readdress and figure out some more successful ways. So I really appreciate you spending so much detail on this. And I think we open up to our board members for some questions or comments.
Hi, this is Narce. Thank you for the presentation. It was very educational. I have a couple of questions. And I don't, expect the answers right now, but maybe later we could get the answers. So, because I have several. One of the questions is the demographics for your students. You showed, for example, this year you have 40, but I would like to know the demographics of ethnicity and gender. And then also, how does that compare in regards to your staff FTE? Because I think it's important for our students, the demographics to mirror the staff. I also noticed that I think the Discovery program is pretty awesome, but I'm a nerd, so I like to research things as I'm learning. And the program doesn't really have much about any equity lens or cultural sensitivity that I saw. So, the program was developed back in the 1990s, so it's about 20 some years old, and I think it has good bones. But I didn't hear throughout the presentation any equity lens. I'm going to assume that some of the students that participate in Calc look like me, possibly Latinx students. There might be some students that might be from our LGBTQ plus, poor students, or probably a lot of intersectionality. So I'm just curious about where does the cultural humility and competency kicks in. That's a question. And then also, I was really shocked to see that the community partners, and I know it was just the list, but it didn't really list any of the nonprofits that also operate with an equity lens, such as Adelante Mujeres, Centro Cultural, and many more throughout the area. And then for the space, I didn't see anything with books, like a library or something, like a corner with libraries. And then maybe one thing to consider in regards to the counseling center, maybe it could, be innovative by think about having it be like a wellness caring center or something like that, so it doesn't have that particular stigma. I'm really excited about the CTE, the Career Technical Education Program. I have worked at PCC for 18 years, and I know how powerful those programs can be. And I was surprised not to see any potential CTE in the need of what our local industry is really begging us for, and that is to prepare people in the wellness field. Nurses, medical, so forth and so on. So anyway, lots of just questions, no need to answer right now. Those were just my observations. And I always think if I was to put my child in a school like Calc, which I've had 3 brothers that ended up in alternative schools, and I just saw a couple of things missing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that, the comments and questions. I did want to address one of them, and the equity lens as far as discovery goes. My friend and former lead teacher, Jessica Pierce, has been working for the last year or so on that specific issue with discovery. And so I'm in contact with her regularly and always talking about discovery because she's the one that started it here. In addition, we also have an equity team at the high school that we participate in, and our discovery teacher is one of the members of that this equity team. And so all of those issues are always current in our minds, and also we kind of direct how we do what we do.
Thank you.
And the library, Michelle's room does have bookshelves low underneath the windows that she receives donated, and also in the back there's several bookcases there. She has a pretty large library, but we also get books from the Forest Grove High School library as needed.
And I would also say that, again, I think one of the big issues, and we all recognize it, is this current space doesn't fit with a lot of things that all of our students need. So I think you're right on target, Narce, with, again, a center that's dealing with kids' wellness, whether we're calling it a counseling center, whether we're moving to a better, that's totally appropriate. And then the issues around CTE, and wherever we cite whatever we're doing next, part of this, I think my idea would be to cite it nearer the high school so that there's some overlap here with the advanced cabinetry program and the welding program and all of these things that we've started up in the high school. Because of Calc's location, it's just really hard to help those kids experience that. So that's, again, as we begin to look forward on where to go with this, I think all of those would be great conversations for all of us to begin to have. And
Any
we'll-
other question? Oh, go ahead.
Well, we'll come back and get there's a couple of answers there, and we'll do the homework on that part and get those back out to the board.
I just have one question. Is all the in terms of the credit recovery, is that done through, was it Odyssey? Where is that? Or-
Yeah, some of it is done through Odyssey where
Okay.
we can, the classes on Odyssey where have been aligned to the classes at the high school.
Right.
So that if a student has done a unit of math, let's say they've done a linear equations unit and
Yeah.
they passed it, they had a great, they got a C on the test or better.
Yeah.
Then what I could do is just skip that unit. So they'd be down to, they don't have to do 2 or 3 units instead of 4.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I will say, Mark, again, another barrier for us is 3 FTE of certified staff doesn't even allow us to run for the 4 different core areas.
Right.
And so there's some allocation issues here around the school and numbers and stuff that all kind of need to get a look at as we begin to think forward with this.
And I was just thinking that if you put, I mean, when you said you had 82 students in the last regular year, and I realize they're not all there at the same time, but I don't know where they all go.
Right.
You had 60 of them or something. I don't know where they all go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I had 28 students in one classroom once, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was too much to
Yeah.
have in a classroom.
Yeah.
Even if it was, the big classroom, it would still be a bit, not just because of the space and the geometry of it, but because our students tend to have some issues that they've, that's brought them to us.
Yeah.
And space is important to them.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there, and and the rooms aren't real big, if I remember. So, yeah.
I have a couple questions. I was wondering, can students request to go to Cal, or is it only on referral?
They can request. They would have to talk to a counselor at the high school, and then they would be on a referral list to come over here. And that usually happens every 6 weeks. We get 15 or so. This year is kind of weird because
Yeah, it is very weird.
we would get, I think we had 15 actually on a scheduled to come, and then maybe 10. How many showed up? 9 or 10 the first day, I think, or maybe it was less than that. Melissa,
What was that, Jonathan?
how many showed up out of the 15 or 16 that we had scheduled to?
Oh, I think 9, 7.
Yeah, so I mean, you can tell it's weird because normally we would get probably close to 15 if that many, but so I think people are just wary of going back to school.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, what Jonathan said is somebody can request it. We've had many students that have requested to come over, just because the high school might be too big for them, a lot of anxiety, depression. So it's just a better fit with a small class size.
Yeah, I just was wanting to refresh my mind about that. You talked about discovery. How long have you been doing discovery at the school? Is that something Jessica brought on, or is that something that's been there for quite a while?
Jessica, Jessica went and did research on it, and then together she and I and Perry and Melissa too. I mean, we were all there at the same time. We brought it in together in 2015.
Okay, so that 250 students represent since 215 that have been successful in the discovery program.
Yeah, that was up through 2020.
Oh, okay.
So, and that would have been, 19 discovery classes.
Yeah.
So 19 discovery classes, we had around 250 students.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, that it wasn't from the beginning of Calc, it was just this when the discovery program was brought on.
Yeah.
I was going to say about libraries that, the $30,000 that we have allocated for books, but there's supposed to be a portion that goes to Calc every other year. I hope you're getting that portion, because John O'Neill, I talked to John about it, that, because they were really in need of books at your school. So I hope you're still getting that. And if you're not, you better talk to John, okay? Because I want those kids to get books, And I know that they did. He gave me $2,000. No, he didn't give it to me. They were really in need. And I went to him and they allocated $2,000. I think, I don't know when it was, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that. I think like Dee Medeiros, she is works with Michelle quite often and getting that taken care of. So
yeah, well, you just let me know if you're not getting your books.
right.
I'll advocate for you. And lastly, I want to say that well, there's two things out, and I'll be quick because I know our time is up. But the Tillicum building program that you're doing is absolutely wonderful. Gales Creek did that before it closed for 10 straight years. And I can't tell you, it made such a huge difference that the kids really bonded. And those kids that were really good in math, they may not have been able to, climb the wall, but the kids cheered them on. And it was just, it's just a wonderful program. And I wish we could have it throughout our whole district, because it really, really is a wonderful program. And I'm glad that you can do it. It's excellent. And again, I want to say to your staff and to you guys, your location and everything is just so challenging. And, each one of your staff have been such strong advocates. And I know people from, Eden Acres, and Nana Cardoon is, I know Charlene, she's a dear friend of mine. And I think that, as we go down and hopefully, be able to build a building for the children in your program, that there's a group of people that can help support the vision of opportunities for the kids, because we have, the Forest Service, we have the wineries and all of that. And I think, not a separate board, but some kind of a group that would help you guys. That would be one of my visions, because, there's so much we can do with the alternative school and the kids, but you guys are teaching every day. And so maybe we hire a staff person, but I really want to say thank you very much for your presentation and for each and every one of you. You do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Those are very kind words. I wanted to ask Narce a question. Would you be willing to give me, like, you named some nonprofits that I would really like our students to be able to connect with. Would you be willing to give me a list of those that you were talking about?
Absolutely.
Adelante Mujeres, I know, but if there's any other ones that you can think of, please send them to me. I would
Absolutely,
love
Jonathan.
to connect our students with those.
Yeah, I will. And I've been board members for most of them. So I can connect you.
Oh, I love that.
Happy to help or make a
Thank you.
connection also.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If there's no other questions, I'm going to end the work session at 6:34. And I think you'll take a couple minutes to start up the other meeting, correct? Kathy, Dave?
You can go ahead and start because it's after 6:30.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
Thank you, everybody, for hearing us
Thanks.
and the support you all give us. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Cal.
Oh, I thought I had to go out and come back in with Zoom. So
Nope, we just keep rolling along.
we keep rolling on. Okay, that's good. All right. Well, good evening. And we are going to call to order our October 25th board meeting at 6:35 p.m. And we will do a roll call first. Mark,
Present.
Val,
Here.
Narcy,
Here?
Brad is not available tonight, and I'm here. Okay. The school board will hear public comments for unscheduled public appearances received through the designated form on the website. Patrons who want to comment live via Zoom should have already registered as a participant, completed the form to provide their information, and indicate that they were going to provide a live comment. If you are providing your comment live as a Zoom participant, please be sure your full name is displayed in your Zoom profile. You can change that by clicking on the participants button, hover over your ID, click rename and type in the correct information and then select OK. Comments will be read by district staff or delivered live via Zoom at the appropriate time. At this time, we do not have any live comments from the community for unscheduled public appearances. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's have introductions of the audience and staff tonight, please.
John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
Kim Shearer, Director of Student Services.
Eileen Clute, Finance.
Enrique Piñón, Technology Department.
Is that everybody?
I think that's it tonight.
Yeah, we only have 12 participants. Okay. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Mark,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Narcy,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. All right, correspondence tonight. Do we have
None.
any correspondence? No correspondence, okay. And calendar notes?
Yeah, a couple of calendar notes for us. The first one is October 28th is the choir concert. It'll be virtual at 7 p.m. Kathy will send you some more information in our Friday memo, just so that you know. And then we do have November 11th is Veterans Day. We've got the fall play is going to be performed in person. They're working, all audience members are required to wear a mask, but there's November 12th through the 21st. There's dates in there, but just wanted the board members to kind of know that, yes, we are going to have a fall play. And then we've got a winter band concert on November 30th. Still not quite sure if that's going to just be virtual or whether they're going to do something in person, but we'll get that information. Just want to make sure you knew that those things are going on.
Thank you. Recognition, do we have any recognition tonight, Dave? Okay. And you know what? I missed Sonia. Is Sonia on our here tonight?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sonia. I just realized I left you off. I'm sorry.
All good.
Do you have a student report?
Yes.
Thank you.
So last week was the end of homecoming week, and we had our procession, our monarchs, which we did like gender neutral. So our monarchs are TJ Bell and Elvis Sayago. And then this week we're celebrating Semana de los Muertos, and the Latinas in Action, they've like started setting up an ofrenda. And then there's like a boys soccer game, and I think that if they win, it's like they're gonna be something winning conference for the first time in like a lot of years, I think. So let's hope they win.
Yay.
Of like how like students are feeling, I think there's definitely been like a dip, I guess, like burnout, like and stuff, because I think especially after like homecoming weeks, we've typically seen people getting like really tired. But that's what I have. So
Okay, anybody have any questions for Sonia? Thank you, Sonia, very much. We appreciate your input and insight at the high school. Dave, superintendent report.
Yeah, I got a chance to go watch the girls soccer match last week in that downpour, and it was a tie, but actually it's just been great. Both of the soccer teams are playing really excellent soccer. So it's been a fun fall. I mean, it's been fun to see all of the sports going, but yeah, soccer is one of those things that right now things are going, there's a lot of good things happening. Wanted to start out tonight's comments with kind of a piece of business that we do every year, and that's the Division 22 standards for the 2020-21 school year, which is last school year. For the 2020-21 school year, school districts are required to report on the Division 22 standards included in OAR 581-022-0103 and report to the board any standard that was not met. In cabinet, we've gone over all of the Division 22 standards, and I'm pleased to report that the Forest Grove School District was compliant and met all of the Division 22 standards for the 2021 school year. This happens every year, but I will just point out a couple of things here, which is we did have some different Division 22 standards around student time, because this was during our virtual year. So there were a couple of changes, but all in all, we have met whatever those requirements were, we've met. This review has in the past occurred later in the school year, like January, but now they've passed a new law where this has now been moved to this November time date. Basically, we present this to you before November 1st, and we have to have it onto our websites before, I think it's November 15th. So this is that statutory just notice to the board that we did meet all of our Division 22 standards. Wanted to just take a second here. I want to review kind of where we're at with COVID. Are you seeing my screen? Perfect. This has been our curve, and the good news for us right now is we are continuing to come down from that initial surge. This is the whole state of Oregon. I've got Washington County in a little bit, but again, this is very encouraging news. Dr. Graven with OHSU, who I think I presented last spring, some of his predictions for surges coming. It's the first time since the pandemic began that I remember him saying they're not forecasting another surge right now. They continue to see things going down, which is great news for us. We do have flu and cold season coming up, so we don't know exactly how that's going to impact us, but I'm just happy to see that the current forecast is a continued decrease. This is our 7-day moving average. I like this one. This blue line here is the one that I tend to look at. We were seeing a pretty steady decrease. Again, I think we're seeing a little bit of leveling, but we still are decreasing here. And this may be, last week. These are the last 4 days. But we're continuing to see a decrease. This is Washington County. The blue line here are total cases. And then this light blue line here is the one that we were typically getting, which is the number of cases over the 2 weeks, which we were up around 300. We're now closer to about 200 to 220 in that range. We're continuing to see it decrease. It's not going down quite as quickly as we might think. Again, the other thing to kind of notice in Washington County, we're still above where we were in the late spring, but below kind of where we were in the December, January range. These are pediatric cases, and these lag just a little bit. They usually aren't quite as up to date, but again, the thing that I want you to notice is pediatric cases are decreasing, which is good. I just heard from our nurse late this afternoon that we're now at the lowest level of student cases that we've been since the beginning of school. And we're also at the lowest staff member set of cases since the school began. Now, I don't know if that's just a lull before there's more coming, but right now that's good news for us, and we'll celebrate that. Last thing is, this is the cases broken out by age again for Oregon. I think what we're seeing here is these age groups 6 to 11 and 12 to 17 are really pretty much, because all of those kids are in school, they're kind of staying in the same place. Our younger kids who are not in school necessarily have a different rate here. So that's kind of where we're at in COVID. And like I said, I like the direction this is going. I want to talk a little bit about vaccines. What we know at this point is somewhere in the early part of November, we expect that OHA will communicate that students from ages 5 to 11 will now be eligible for COVID vaccine. I've heard a couple of different things, either November 5th through about November 13th. I'm just not exactly sure when this announcement is gonna be officially made. We're gonna hear over the more detailed information in probably the next week or 2 weeks, kind of what's gonna happen there. All I have right now is kind of general information. Currently, what the thinking is the majority of students will access this through their pediatrician or through a pharmacy. Part of that has to do with, to give a shot to a child, you need the parent to be there. The issue that we have with that is there's still a number of our families who do not have access to pediatricians. And the pharmacies actually, with their licensing, they have a lower limit of the kids that they can vaccinate. It's like 7 years old. So there's still between 5 and 7 that we've got to do some figuring out. So I'm all of Washington County, but currently I've got a phone call into Virginia Garcia to start talking about how we connect to do some larger events. Virginia Garcia's got a meeting with OHA and some of the other local groups trying to determine how they want to do this. And then they're going to get a hold of me after they meet with them to kind of talk about what some of our next steps are. I met with Washington County Health this morning, and they're also interested in if we have need them to be vaccinators at some sites. We can do that too. So we're just still working through a lot of unknowns to get to this place. Again, it's probably going to be pediatricians, pharmacies, and then some other kind of larger sites to help with the equity and make sure that all parents and families can get access to that. And then lastly, conferences as a whole went well. Last week was K-8. Comments were generally positive and parents were happy that students are back in school. We feel good about the accessibility of the conferences this year. Many parents talked about the use of Zoom for the conferences. When the families didn't have access, then our families worked with them and they did phone conferences. There was a lot of communication to make sure that we connected with families. Schools are still working on the actual attendance, so I'm going to try and get that out to you over the next week or so. One thing that was mentioned at Tom McCall is that parents reported an appreciation for our staff. With a year and a half in lockdown and hybrid, I think parents know it's been hard. Our staff is really working hard to make this all happen. Our Tom McCall teachers also reported kind of like the homeschool connection feels pretty strong right now too. So with that, I'd take any questions on vaccines or COVID or anything else.
Dave, I wanted to just share something that my daughters were reflecting on the other day. They're both adults now, in their 20s, but they went to Forest Grove and they're like, remember those days when we were in kindergarten and the teacher would come to our home for the first time, and that was so exciting. So anyway, they were wondering about that, they were saying probably that doesn't happen anymore, but they talked about how special that was.
Actually, we have lots of home visits. We did them, again, in the times of COVID, there's some different work that's going on there, but actually at the high school level now, they're doing home visits for attendance and kind of barrier checking because some of our kids aren't making it. And with the addition of, in the recent years, of those grad coaches, and then them kind of repurposing, like a lot of the folks who do the security monitoring in the high school are now also part of the attendance team and doing some of the figuring out which students are struggling, checking in with them, and then these home visits. So actually we're moving towards more of those.
I will share that with them. They'll be happy to hear that. It's alumni.
Yep.
Dave, I think that, forget about COVID, but prior to COVID, the pre-kinder and kinder teachers made home visits.
Yeah.
That's what I saw at Cornelius and Joseph Gale.
And they're still doing those pieces. We just had to adjust a little bit for COVID. And I will also say that as soon as we get a little bit further on COVID, we'll go back to it. It was a very, very good practical process for us.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing to do if the teachers and the families can do that. If there's no more questions for Dave, we'll move on. Thanks so much, Dave, for the update on COVID. That's really important information. There's no there's no one that has participated in the unscheduled public appearances, so we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent item a board or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? If not, may I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Yes,
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor, Mark,
Yes.
Narcy,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. Next on the agenda tonight is the presentation of the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. And Eileen is going to present an update for us.
Thank you, Kate. So I'm going to share my screen quick. So tonight I have a ESSER update on kind of what ESSER is and what Forest Grove is doing with our ESSER funds. Our ESSER funds are from 3 different acts. We have the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, and the American Rescue Plan. All 3 of these they provided funds to support schools through the elementary and secondary emergency relief funds. These are ESSER 1, 2, and 3. The primary purpose of these funds is really to provide districts with additional support for emergency relief for almost anything that has to do with the impact of COVID-19 and what it has had on schools, elementary and secondary. Our ESSER 1 is, and I'll go through each one of our ESSERs differently or separately so you can see how we're spending each one of those. But ESSER 1 is from the CARES Act of 2020. It is $13.2 billion was provided to schools nationwide. Oregon got 121 million. And then they distributed 90% of that directly to districts based on the Title I formula distribution. So that is the distribution that Forest Grove School District got. The purpose of these funds is to provide educational agencies with emergency relief funds, specifically to address the impact of COVID-19. We could use these funds through September of 2022. And then ESSER 1 is special. It has a equitable services provision included in it. Because it was distributed based on the Title I formula, it is requiring Forest Grove School District to go through a consultation process with our local non-public schools. So we worked with Visitation, Pacific University, Swallowtail, Westside Christian, and Forest Grove Montessori to see if they wanted to participate in the ESSER program with the Forest Grove School District. Visitation is the only one out of those non-public schools that chose to participate. And so they did get a distribution based on the number of free and reduced students or students in poverty in their school registered in Visitation as compared to the percentage at Forest Grove School District. So they did get an allocation. And just a note, ESSER 1, 2, and 3, Forest Grove Community School also got an allocation to that based on the number of students that are in attendance. ESSER 1 allowable uses, there's a lot of allowable uses here. Pretty much anything related to COVID, anything related to returning. But the biggest thing that is here is this last bullet that says other activities necessary to maintain the operation and continuity of services for education agencies and continuing to employ existing staff. So we could use these funds for everything to maintain our current service level that we were providing last year and try to not impact staff and impact services with the shutdown and returning to hybrid. Forest Grove School District, we did use it all, but our allocation was $923,000. We used most of it last year, and then we finished expending it by September 30th of this year. So ESSER 1 is fully utilized for the district. We utilized the funds between health services and extra IA support, and that was 38%. Our public charter school and private schools, and then 24% went to technology, and then 15% went to our temporary licensed subs that we hired last year. And building allocations, we allocated out 12% to the buildings to use as necessary to keep their buildings in operation last spring. So that's kind of big bucket items on how ESSER 1 was spent. The primary focus was really to just continue to keep our services going and support students and teachers in a CDL model, and then again, returning to school in a hybrid model. ESSER 2 is the second ESSER grant that we got. It is from the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations. Nationwide, there was $54.3 billion that went to elementary and secondary schools. $499 million went to Oregon, which is 4 times more than our ESSER 1 funds. Again, these funds are to directly provide relief to address the COVID impacts for school districts. We have until September of 2023 to expend these funds. And ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 do not have the equitable service provision in it. So there was no requirement to consult with our non-public schools. Allowable uses, ESSER 2 has allowable uses, pretty much everything that's under ESSER 1. And then it did add 3 additional components. One is to address the learning loss because of the closures. The second one is for school facility repairs and improvements to reduce the risk of transmission of COVID. And then the third one is to improve indoor air quality for school facilities, so our HVAC and filtration systems. ESSER 3, or ESSER 2, sorry, we got $3.8 million. We have expended very little of this for last year. This year and next year will be the big, we're going to split and spend ESSER 2 over this current fiscal year and next year. It's projected to be 50% in HVAC upgrades. It'll have some custodial costs in there. And then technology, device, and replacement, software, and hotspots will be other big components of how Forest Grove School District anticipates spending our ESSER 2 funds. So that is the big items and the big ways that we anticipate spending these funds for this year and next. A little bit more information about ESSER 2, because 50% is set aside for HVAC and air quality issues or projects. I wanted to kind of identify what we have set aside for that. The first 2 are already done. So our NAMS air exhaust, we brought to the board a few months ago to do the air exhaust upgrades at Neil Armstrong to be able to exhaust more air out of the building, increasing the airflow in the classrooms so that we can get more outside air in. Since that building does have very limited windows and it's kind of enclosed, that was one of our big focuses, is we wanted to make sure that there was as much outdoor air getting pushed into the building as we could. The second one is the upgrades for the Ddc controls. And those are our direct controls to where we can monitor and see the HVAC systems district-wide electronically. So we finished that upgrade. The third one, and that's done. The third one is the NAMS boiler replacement. Because the air exhaust and the amount of outside air that we're trying to push into the building, our old boilers in that building are not going to be able to sustain and keep up with maintaining that building at a comfortable level and keep heating it. So we are going to be replacing those boilers over winter break. The fourth one is replacing an air handler at Harvey Clark that is not operating efficiently and as much as it could be right now. So we're going to replace that one, and it will have MERV 13 filters in it. That is in engineering, and we hope to have it done this year. And then the last one is, we don't have the specific project identified yet, but we are working with our Energy Trust and SB 1149 partners. Both those funds we can use to kind of bridge and add the 3 funding sources together to be able to do a larger project. Energy Trust funds and SB 1149 funds are for energy efficiency upgrades at any of our PGE buildings. So our PGE buildings is going to be Cornelius, Echo Shaw, Dilley, and Gales Creek. So the SB 1149s must, the SB 1149 funds must be spent on those buildings on a project there. So we're working with consultants and individuals with those 2 programs to identify what project is going to best meet our needs. Okay. ESSER 3 is from the American Rescue Plan. It's $122 billion nationwide, $1.1 billion to Oregon, which again is 2 times more than ESSER 2. So the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 kept growing as they as they came. We have until September of 2024 to spend these funds. And this ESSER 3 was a lot more in depth of a process to be able to get the funds. So they had, ODE had an application process, And included in that, we have some transparency requirements. So a board and public transparency on how we're spending our funds and what we're doing with the ESSER funds. And then we had to do a supplemental plan to ODE, which builds upon our original student investment account plan. And then the last one is having a continuity of services plan. Both of these plans are on our district website. There's links here that I can send you. They're on our district website under COVID. So you could see what that plan is, the application, and our continuity of services. A copy of this presentation will also be there too. The ESSER 3 funds do have an maintenance of equity provision, meaning that we can't, because we have these extra relief funds, that we can't reduce the amount of spending that we are currently spending, or we were spending in 2019, to any of our schools that are identified as low income. So it's just saying that we can't go and take funds away from Cornelia's or Fernhill or Echo Shaw, our title schools, and supplement those schools with these ESSER funds. So we'll have to watch that and just make sure that our level of services from 2019 maintains for 2020, 21, 22. So for these years. And then lastly, with ESSER 3, there is a 20% a 20% grant of this grant must go through and towards learning loss. And it has to be evidence-based interventions. So you'll see when I go over how we're planning on spending these funds, there is quite a bit of it that we're planning on spending for interventions at the buildings and for our students. Allowable uses, pretty much everything under ESSER 1, everything under ESSER 2. It does exclude and take out the provision allowing us to just provide resources to principals for their specific needs. So it does take out that availability for us to be able to do that. And then it has an additional category in there for the development of strategies and implementation of health protocols. So for Forest Grove School District, we are getting $8.6 million for ESSER 3 funds. We have 3-4 years to spend them. So we're going to utilize these over a couple of years. You can see up here, this is the breakdown of how we have budgeted the distribution. So this current fiscal year, we'll spend about 60%. And then the next fiscal year, we'll spend 39%. And then you can see the breakdown between years. The blue is 2022, 2023, and the brown is 2021, 2022. Our ESSER 3 plan is, the big components of that is building interventions. So this is building specific intervention needs. Again, air quality, math interventions at NAMS, building IAs and health supports. So these are our health IAs and our building IAs for supervision. And then our online school that started this year. A little bit about the ESSER 3 funds. Our interventions are about $2.2 million over the 2 years. So it's a significant portion of, it's the largest portion of the ESSER 3 funds. It's about $800,000 in year 2, which is this current fiscal year, and year 3. And then each building will get an allocation based on the total number of students, and it will be weighted based on the historically underserved student populations. So it, the distribution takes into account the building's enrollment, the IEP counts, the ELL counts, the free and reduced poverty rates, and then that's how we distributed the funds out to the buildings for their interventions. K-8 is primarily focusing on hiring FTE to implement Tier 3 literacy interventions. And then 912 is focusing FTE on credit recovery and online school. Additionally, Neil Armstrong has the 2.0 math interventions and software that's included in there. And the other big component is our online school. We have about $1.5 million set aside for online school just for K-6. And right now it's supporting 177 students. It has 7 FTE plus a classified support. And then Neil Armstrong and the high school are not being funded out of the online column. Neil Armstrong is being funded out of their current building FTE, so they're not utilizing ESSER funds to support their online students. And then the high school is utilizing their intervention funds. So they're actually utilizing this set of funds for their online. So this 1.5 is specifically K-6. And then we do have an allocation for air quality. We are right now working with some professionals regarding our options to increase and better our air quality district-wide to see what our next steps are. We'll have more information later this winter on that once we get that back. And I'll bring that to you either in a Friday memo or at the board and kind of keep you guys posted on what our plan is for that. At this time, we just have an allocation set. And then the last piece is the building IAs and health IAs. So those are the primary focuses of ESSER 3 funds. ODE has a couple of resources. Their webpage is great. It has a lot of COVID ESSER funds and COVID related resources. And then they also have a PDF flyer that just kind of shows the allowable uses side by side between ESSER 1, 2, and 3 that are linked in here if you want more information. So I know I went through that kind of fast. I'm sorry. There was a lot of information. But if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them or try.
So what, my question is, I mean, what happens when the funds are spent, right? I mean, I saw FTE, I saw IAs, I saw all kinds of things in there, right? And typical, I mean, this isn't continued funding. So when the funding goes away, what happens?
Right. These positions will go away when the funding goes away for the most part. There's a couple of positions we hope to incorporate into SIA moving forward. So hopefully they will maintain long-term. But for the most part, any of these positions that we hired under ESSER funds, we did hire as temporary. Yeah. So they're not, we did not hire them as permanent staff.
Okay. And any programs we have going out of this? I mean, it was so much. I mean, I have to say it was so much to look at, but yeah, I think we've got some programs going there. Any programs we've got going, how do we sustain those? Are we going to try and incorporate those or?
So the biggest issues there, Mark, are around interventions.
Okay.
And
right.
Normally we would run our interventions with the folks that we have in our building. Right. You're going to find out from the next presentation, kind of the level of need is larger. Mm-hmm. So we're expanding that FTE to run those interventions. But all of the FTE that we've done with ESSER, it's been very clear to the people we've hired and to the like principals and the folks who are doing it, which is ESSER and goes away and which is being thought of as more permanent. So we're thinking about all those things as we're doing this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge influx of money, right? And it's great while the money's there. I mean, all the things that you can do, but it does dry up eventually and you have to move on. So that's the only thing that I wonder about.
Right. The other thing, Mark, is the online school. So that's the one we'll have to, it's only budgeted in ESSER for this year and next year. So we'll have to kind of evaluate it and figure out what our next steps are moving forward. And if we're going to continue it, prioritize it into the general fund.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that and I think about the budget and some conversations with the budget. So, anyways, yeah.
I mean, it's a great point, Mark, because we've said it over and over again, which is we've chosen to leave the FTE where it's at, even though we're below what we budgeted at, which is good for this year. That's for our interventions and what we need to do. But in the spring, we are going to have to reconcile. And like the online school, one of the reasons we used ESSER is because we just didn't know what the enrollment's going to be. Well, we now know what the enrollment is. And so allocating staff to it based on enrollment, and maybe there's a way for us to do this over like partially ESSER next year and then partially general fund and ease into it. But those are all conversations that we're having right now.
That are coming. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions for Eileen?
Eileen, are any of the funds that you mentioned, some of them provided to Calc?
So Forest Grove High School gets their allocation, and included in their allocation for both their building specific allocation and their building intervention allocation is their Calc student enrollment. So it really, in this has been up to the high school to distribute those funds based on their programs as a whole.
We don't know. It's kind of an independent decision.
Yeah, and I can check because again, we would probably roll that out based on the number of students. But I will see Karen tomorrow, so I'll kind of ask her and find out what we're doing there.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, thank you so much, Eileen. That was really well presented and informative. You know, when you hear for me, when I hear the ESSER funds, you know, it's nice to see it broken down so well. So again, thank you, Eileen. The next presentation is the fall assessment review, and I think that's John O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We have a PowerPoint that I think we shared with all board members this Friday afternoon. I think Dave pushed that out. So we're all very anxious as we've spoken during the pandemic. What has the pandemic had in terms of impact? We just had a major presentation of the infusion of federal monies to help offset that impact to a certain extent. And so what about here in Forest Grove? So what I'm going to present tonight are the fall 2021 benchmark assessments in reading and math. And we're going to compare them to the fall of 2019, the last time that we had non-COVID impact in terms of our benchmark assessments for reading and math. And we're going to go ahead and start off with our literacy. So our reading assessments in our school district include Easy CBM for grades K2, STAR Reading for grades 2 through 12, STAR Spanish for grades K2, EDEL Spanish for grades K2, and Acadience for grades K4 used by Joe Gale. They're in a third year of a pilot. For all assessments, the following are the risk categories assigned. So these assessments will identify students in the 0 to 5 percentile in which urgent intervention is needed, 5 to 20th percentile where intervention or high risk exists, and 21st to 50th percentile some risk, and 51st to 100th percentile at or above benchmark or low risk. So using that as a lens, we'll go ahead and take a look at some of our district-wide assessment results. Again, this is 2019-20 fall assessment to the 21-22 or this school year. This is a little misleading in terms of the English Easy CBM does not provide high risk. So you can see that they have been impacted in terms of the entering kindergartners. But when you take a look at, the Spanish version, what doesn't show or be illustrated are high risk for those students at the kindergarten level. First grade, you can definitely see there's, we went from 2% at high risk to 58%. in high risk first grade reading. In second grade, we went from 29% in high risk to 48% high risk in reading. EDL Spanish, this is what I was talking about. This does break out by high risk, whereas the other one was all yellow. But you can see over half of the kids, well over half of the students are at high risk entering into kindergarten this fall. First grade is a significant uptick, triple the number of students that are at high risk for literacy in Spanish, EDL. And then you can see every student that we've tested is at high risk in second grade. Easy CBM for third grade, you can see that there's a definite uptick as well. It's not as pronounced, but it's there. And then when you get to fourth grade, something interesting happens. It's still an increase, but it starts to level off a little bit. And we discussed this as a team, Elena Santana, myself, Osvaldo Contreras, elementary principals, even cabinet. One of the things that we've identified is, there's a difference between learning to read, which happens kindergarten through third grade. And then when students have those basic foundational phonemic awareness and sounds, letter identification, etc., they begin to read to learn. And that occurs starting in fourth grade. But you can still see there's an uptick in terms of the number of students that are at high risk that we want to get into interventions. This is the STAR Fall reading benchmark results, grades K2, 1920, 2021, very similar. Third grade, an uptick in terms of urgent interventions. Fourth grade, another uptick in terms of the number of students that are in need of urgent interventions. And here's the STAR Spanish. You can see this is where we're at. Now, the challenge here is for second grade and third grade, we didn't have the benchmark data from 2019. So this year's serving as benchmark data for grades 2 and 3. But you can see we have 17% in urgent intervention with another 27% in need of intervention. And then third grade, we're looking at 40% intervention with another 26 with just regular intervention. 1920, this is the year that we do have a comparison. And you can see the impact of learning loss and in fourth grade. Acadience, again, this is the pilot. This is, sorry for bringing so many assessments to you, but this is the pilot that we've initiated 3 years ago at Joe Gale. And it's a different assessment, different school of kids, but you can see the impact is just the same in terms of the need. Kinder, an uptick from 1920 to 2021, a major uptick in first grade, uptick again in second grade, not as big of an uptick in third grade for well below benchmark, and then a little bit less well below benchmark. Again, it's that transition. The students in fourth grade and higher seem to have mastered the skills necessary to read, to learn during closure. And you can see that as reflected here in fifth grade and in sixth grade results, 1920 to 21-22. But all of this shows that we have a real task in front of us to get kids not only the core instruction, but also the supports they need so that we can accelerate their learning and address the learning loss that is accrued during the pandemic. This is seventh grade and eighth grade. Here's another look at seventh and eighth grade. We wanted to share this with you as well. This is grade level equivalent. So this is the percent of students based on the fall STAR assessment that are reading at the ninth grade level or higher in seventh grade. And again, that's 10%, And then in 8th grade, that's 17%. These are the current students that we currently have at Neil Armstrong this fall. But you can see all the way up to this line, the light green, that's grade level from here on up. All these students are below grade level in reading. So you can see the impact. 8th grade, it's not as pronounced. Again, they had another year of in-person instruction under their belt before closure. Kate, it looks like you have a question.
Well, I looked at these earlier today, and then I saw with the ESSER funds, the majority of the kids are 2 years behind at Neil Armstrong. So where is the reading interventions for those kids?
Right, we're going to get to that. I'll take
okay.
It's coming, but exactly. So we're going to look at the data,
okay,
by literacy, and then what we're doing to address that, and then also for math and what we're doing for math.
Well, I saw the funds for math intervention, but I didn't see it for reading. But I'll just wait you out. Okay, that's okay.
Okay. There you go. So here, let me go ahead and present again. I'm sorry. So here are the tiered supports that we provide to all students. Tier 1, just a reminder, is core instruction, what we expect all students to receive instructionally in terms of their grade level. And so for Tier 1, pre-K, we use the OWL reading program through Pearson, as well as Zoophonics. So all students receive that Tier 1. For grades K through 6, all students receive Reading Street, which is the English Core Literacy Program, or the Spanish Core Literacy Program, Calle de Lectora. They also receive supplementals, Reading A to Z, Zoophonics, EPIC, and Newzilla. And in K2, students receive ECRI, explicit and systematic phonics instruction, both in English and in Spanish. Tier 2 also happens within the classroom. What we use at K2 for Spanish reading is Camino al Éxodo, Haggerty, phonemic awareness, letter recognitions, letter sound recognition, language awareness, both in English and Spanish. We also use Blast and Countdown, phonics and phonemic awareness, La Estrelita, advanced beginning Spanish reading. And then for grades 3 through 6, in-classroom interventions include HD Word, Word Study, which focuses on phonics and phonemic awareness, and Read Naturally, which builds fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension skills. So all of this takes place in the classroom. And what you'll see here real soon is that we're using professional learning communities, or PLCs, teachers working together in the same school, same grade level, talking about best practices, and they routinely meet during our SIT Wednesdays to have those conversations. But here's the Tier 3 interventions. This happens outside of the classroom, generally by instructional aides or literacy specialists for grades K4, and that's Kindor Kingdom. It's an Orton Gillingham-based system, small group, very individualized, and it's systemic and explicit reading instruction. So again, that's what occurs at the elementary level. For grades 7 through 12, Tier 1, where all students receive common instruction based on the Common Core state standards, using common formative assessments, summative, and benchmark assessments. And we use, like we just shared with you, the STAR in the fall, winter, and spring. And those professional learning communities, they're taking a look right now at this reading performance data of their students, and they're having meaningful conversations on, okay, so where are our students' strengths? Where are the areas of greatest need? And how are we going to group students and regroup students? And they also discuss, that Tier 1 initial instruction. How are you teaching this unit that's coming up? And what instructional practices are you using? So again, they focus on student achievement, interventions, and extensions for the students that have got it. What are we doing for those students as well? And then best practices for instruction. Writing work samples, tier 1, all students have a narrative, expository, and argumentative essays this year's that they take that's based off of the state writing rubric. In classroom, tier 2 supports include interventions and extensions after each formative and summative assessments. Again, looking at those student assessment results and identifying who needs interventions and who needs extensions. And that's being fully implemented at Forest Grove High School in the Common Core classes. That's on those sit days where they meet together and they look at that student performance data, and then they have those conversations. What are we doing in the classrooms to support students? And it's developing at Neil Armstrong Middle School. That's a top priority for Principal Kelly and her team for this year. Also, opportunities for reteaching during class, as well as academic advisory at Neil Armstrong, and opportunities for student retakes to achieve proficiency on lesson objectives. Tier 3, that's the reading workshop, and they employ language and live. Transcript English and online Odysseyware, that's the credit recovery. And that has really helped, particularly with our graduation rate and with 12th and 11th grade. Without that transcript English courses, we'd have far more students that would not be on track. So that's the
Hey, John,
literacy side.
before you move on, just to answer Kate's question. So in those allocations for the different schools for intervention, there's about $120,000 that's allocated to NAMS. What they're looking at is, again, hiring in the people who will be doing some of the intervention work here. There's tier 3 intervention. So that's what they're looking at using their money for. Besides the other things that John already mentioned, which is they already know they have to accelerate kids. And so talking about it inside of their teams and their PLCs.
Thank you,
So
Dave.
is that for reading, Dave?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
At the high school level, again, they're focusing more around the credit recovery piece because of, besides the reading stuff, there's also a big credit recovery that you saw in the paper and when ODE pushed their latest results out, which is our high school is really focused around how do we get all these kids graduated.
On track. Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks, Sean.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, perfect. Thanks, Dave. I was on a roll. So math assessments, real quick, grades K2. We use the Go Math in-program benchmark assessments for grades K2, and it's given in the fall, winter, and spring. Same thing, the grade level in school, grade level teams of teachers meet regularly on Wednesdays, and they take a look at this assessment data and they plan accordingly. Again, they're looking at the data on the grade level standards. Also available online or paper pencil format. These Go Math benchmark assessments are available in either format. The results provides detailed information for individual students at each grade level standard taught throughout the year. And that's primarily through the online version. Grades 3 through 8, we use a Shannon McCaw IAP assessment, which is aligned to predict SBAC meets, a score of 3 or higher on the SBAC. And that's given in the fall and winter. We don't give it in the spring because it's so well aligned to the SBAC. We just give the SBAC and then we compare to the fall and winter results to see how are we doing in terms of our initial instruction, our tier 2 supports, in classroom supports, and then also tier 3 interventions outside the core classrooms to keep that trajectory going. We want to see it on an upward trend all year. Again, that's based on grade level standards. It projects student achievement levels on the SBAC, and I didn't realize this, but it's called ESPA now. But same thing, same test, it's a state test. And then provide strand information by student with meeting, nearly meeting, and far from meeting information available. And it's given at the end of the year, and it provides meeting, nearly meets, and far from meeting categories by student and by strand. And our teachers take a look at that. For grades 9 through 12, the IAP stopped producing the high school level exams. And so we have worked very closely with our core content professional learning communities and Allison Samuel in creating final exams, which are the comprehensive assessment, which are given in the fall to determine initial student knowledge, winter to see fall to winter growth, and spring, which is tied directly to their grade in terms of the class. But that final exam based on those content area standards for each course. And then percentage scores are separated into exceeds, meets, nearly meets, and does not meet. Again, the SBAC, or ESPA as it's now called, is administered in grade 11 only, and they're going to do that again this year. So it's given at the end of the year only to 11th graders. And again, it provides that meeting, nearly meets, and far from meeting categories by student and strand. So let's take a look at the data. For grades K2, the Go Math Fall Benchmark data, 2019, 3 years ago to this fall, 2021, kindergarten, we're not sure how to explain that, but the high risk went down while the some risk grew. And then when we take a look at first grade, I mean, if you look at those numbers, 83% were at high risk, and we're looking at 78% of our students at high risk. Very high numbers of student needs that need supports, 1920 to 2122. If you look at the IAP, again, that's at Shannon McCaw, that's aligned to the grade level SBAC or ESPA outcomes. You can see that in grade 3, that high risk has grown significantly during the closure time, as with the 4th grade from 19 to 21 this fall. If you take a look at the fall benchmarks for grades 5, 6, this is 2019 to 2021. It's not as profound, but again, the numbers are significant in terms of need for high risk of not meeting SBAC with a 3 or higher by the springtime. So these, again, are interventions that we're looking at, not only during the class, but also outside of class. And I'll get into that for a moment. Here's grade 7, and here's grade 8. As you see, it kind of tends to level off, but it's not as high as an impact at the lower grades. And we think that part of that, again, is they have mastered the basic reading skills that allowed them to continue their studies to that level. So here's where it gets interesting. And again, this is where the IAP exams stop being produced. And we have administered this data for this year for everyday algebra. This is the outcome for all students that are enrolled in that course at the high school right now. And you can see that a significant majority are at some risk or high risk. Algebra 1, you can still see that, and quite not as high. Principles of algebra, again, very high. Geometry, you can see high risk and some risk. Transitional algebra 2, high numbers, and then very similar to algebra 2 in terms of needs. So what are we doing about it? K6, again, tier 1, in classroom, core instruction, all students receive tier 1. We're using common formative assessments, summative and benchmark assessments in grades K6, common lesson goals, which means our students achieving 75% of the students or higher the proficiencies identified or the primary standards for each grade level. And we determine that at the end of lesson or at the end of a multi-day lesson through the use of exit tasks. Teachers administer a formative assessment to determine, do we need to go back in tier 2 during class time and reteach the students who do not meet the lesson goals on the exit task? Or is it a small group pullout? If we have 85%, we have 15% of our students that the teacher knows they need to go back and reteach that opportunity for those 15% of the students that didn't meet it. Now, the PLCs, professional learning communities, meet and they focus on common assessments, student achievement, and best practices for instruction. So again, they're taking a look at this fall data and whether that's Go Math assessments for K2 or for grades 3, 6, the IAP assessments, and seeing what have they taught already to date and what's ahead in the scope and sequence for the rest of the year, and what do we need to go ahead and prioritize. So again, tier 1 and tier 2 happens during the regular class time. Tier 3 is that time outside of core math time where we use small group pullouts and support for struggling students. And that's where that ESSER 3 money comes in. For grades 7, 12, again, during core tier 1, all students receive the core grade level curriculum. We use common formative and summative and benchmark assessments. And then the PLCs, the core team of teachers, come together and they focus on the assessment results, the student achievement, both intervention as well as extension, and best practices for instruction. How are you introducing this next lesson? And then they look at results, and then they identify and compare those instructional best practices. Tier 2, also again within the classroom, that intervention or extension after each formative and summative assessment is happening at Forest Grove High School, and we're developing that at Neil Armstrong. And then also the opportunities for student retakes to achieve proficiency or mastery on the lesson objectives if needed. The tier 3 math intervention, that's that required elective at Neil Armstrong, and that's at ESSER 3. We added 2 full teachers there this fall, and we're getting as many students as we possibly can that need that high level of intervention. And we're going to assess them before the end of the first semester. And those students that are on track to meet the on grade level standards as measured by SBAC, they will transition to an elective of their choice. And then we'll bring in the students that weren't placed in that required elective as needed for based on the winter assessment results. I hope that makes sense. Also, we do have very limited busing opportunities after school. As you know, the 2 main challenges are personnel and transportation. We have lost some drivers throughout the pandemic, as every school district and throughout the nation and our state. And that's been a real challenge, but we do have enough busing to prioritize the CLC extensions and interventions provided at Tom McCall and at Neil Armstrong. And then also during the day math support is an elective at Forest Grove High School as well. So we've got the math interventions, that required elective at Neil Armstrong, and the math support classes at Forest Grove High School. So again, this is the plan. It dovetails very nicely to Eileen's presentation that came, first, discussing the funding and the supports. The 2 challenges right now is giving the schools the money to hire, some additional hours for instructional aides, for instance, or teachers to provide that support classes. But also, we have a real challenge of substitutes and lack of personnel. So if a classified member is absent, oftentimes we don't have a sub to fill in. So that is a trickle down effect. That's another challenge we're having with the interventions during the day. is there a classified person there that day to provide those supports? So these are things that we're monitoring very closely with the principals. Dave and I have been having ongoing conversations with the principals individually and in elementary and secondary principals, just taking a look at the data. And then also, what are your prioritizations? What is going to be the biggest bang for the buck in terms of the added supports that we're pushing in to accelerate student learning and to help offset that learning loss? Dave, did you have more to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to just say that's a lot. That was a lot of information, but we felt pretty strongly. I appreciate John going through that. We felt pretty strongly after 18 months. This is really the first substantial look we've got at where our kids are at. And so I know we just presented a ton of data to you, but we felt like it was important just to get this out there so everybody has kind of an understanding of where we're at. It's going to take more than a year to do this. So those ESSER funds are paying for this year and next year. So we have some time to kind of build in the interventions here that kids need. And then we'll adjust from there. But I know you probably have questions, but I wanted you to know why we threw so much at you tonight.
Yeah, I would just say, and I know, John, when I was looking at tier 1 and tier 2, I think you said that those things happen in the classroom. And I just want to point out that for classroom teachers, that's really, 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 really challenging. And when you look at the numbers of the students that are at high risk and the numbers of students, the percentages of students that are at the next level of risk, that's really hard to do. And in most classes, that's the majority of students that they're going to have to do interventions with. And so students who don't need the interventions, I worry about them in the mixed ability classes. And I worry, I know that I read what's down there on paper, what you're presenting, but I know from experience that it's very, very difficult to get that done. And so there's what's written and there's what's happens. And it's a really, really challenging thing. And
agreed. Totally agreed.
So I don't want us to miss how hard teachers are working and how challenging that job is. And I go back to the middle school not having honors classes at some level, and the students that are at the upper end of that and in those mixed ability classes. And so I worry about that. So,
Thanks.
so I know what you're saying there. I just don't want to gloss over the fact that this happens and it just happens. It happens easy. It doesn't happen easy.
No,
it's really, really, really hard to do.
It is. And it's never been more challenging.
Right.
In my career, ever have I seen.
You need all those levels in a classroom with all those mixed ability students and those high numbers of need significant interventions and need some interventions. That's in some classes, John, that's 75% of the students in the class. So, I don't know. I mean, I know it is as a result of the pandemic. I get all of that, but I just don't want us to miss the point of how hard that is to do.
Well said.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback on what Mark is saying. When I was looking at the tier 1 and tier 2, for example, the strategies for K through 6 for math, it talks about the exit test. And then tier 2 talks about reteaching for students who don't meet the lesson goals or the tests. Well, if the exit tests are done at the end of class and the student doesn't meet it, how can the teacher reteach it if student's going on to its next class?
Great question. And what they do is they look at that before the next class period.
I also think you're mixing the metaphor there a little bit in that, again, our K-6 buildings are all self-contained. They're actually really good at this aspect of It's where we get into the secondary that I think there's some particular issues of how do you, the mixed ability classes, and it becomes much harder for us. So
Yeah, I think even if you're still in the same classroom, if you need to move on to science, then you need to move on. You don't have time to go back and reteach the math lesson to 5 students that didn't get it. I just think that we need to maybe, I mean, I know it's not easy, but I don't know if this is really going to work, these interventions.
They already work. We're not really doing, the Kendor and the HD word and the way that we're doing that K6, we're still, those are all, the words not jumping in my head here, evidence-based practices that we're already doing and we do well. We just need to do now a lot more of them, which is why we're pushing in the intervention FTE. At the secondary level is where I think things get, again, our elementary teachers and principals are really good about their 100% meetings, determining which kids need interventions, setting up their reading materials for those kids specifically for their needs. K6, we've been doing this work for we understand it. 7-12, I think things get more challenging for this. That's just my take. John, I don't know if you have a different take on
No,
that.
I agree. And, in 7, in grades 5 through 12, we differentiate in math. So we do have advanced math at 5 and 6. We continue that trajectory on in grade 7 all the way through, grade 12. Mark, I think your point is, the reading, language arts classes and science and social studies classes.
Yeah. You've heard this. This is nothing new. I'm not saying anything new, but yeah.
The challenge also, I just need to be totally transparent, because a lot of this falls on my shoulders in terms of, getting us there.
Yeah.
The challenge also is substitutes.
Yeah.
When we're pulling classified staff now to help cover a classroom, when we're short a teacher, the interventions don't take place that day. We just do not have people lined up and it's not Forest Grove High School, it's statewide, it's nationwide. I just need to be very we're really trying hard to figure out how to fix these puzzles and challenges. And
I guess the one thing I would say then, on the times that they have PLCs, or the times when staff they're meeting together as a math department or language arts department, I guess what I would say is just let them work on what they think they need to work on to get this job done. And so don't complicate it by having agendas that aren't, I just have to say it, let them just do their work on those times that they're meeting. Right. Because the task ahead of them is very, very challenging, and they're in there every day. And so I just think you have to allow them latitude to do what they think they need to do. That's
absolutely. And, Dave and I have had extensive conversations with the principals in terms of professional learning communities. We're looking at Rick DeFore's 4 main questions. What do we want all students to learn? It's exactly what you're talking about, Mark. How do we know if they learned it? What do we do for the students that didn't learn it? And what do we do for the students that did learn it, that are ready to go to the next level? Exactly what Val was talking about as well. And again, that's that teacher team having those conversations and, wading through those questions.
Yeah, I don't know if teachers can, John, I don't know the details of this, but whether you have 2 math teachers that have students who haven't met the objectives, and whether, if they're the same period, you move students around to be efficient at this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the walk to read, walk to math, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just so
Yep.
that, I'm good at this area, teaching this area. So you give me your students that didn't meet and I'll, so I just think just allow them, allow them to do their work,
Absolutely. Agreed. Right, Dave?
Yep.
And maybe you are, I don't know. I don't know, but I just look at what you presented. I know how hard it is. So.
Yeah, what I would say on that, Mark, is the other thing, we're just trying to get teachers enough time right now.
Yeah.
So we're having to pull back on some of the things that we thought we were going to do in the summer.
Yeah.
We're pulling back saying, whoa. And so it's even more of a challenge just trying to get time to folks right now. So, but yeah.
Thank you. More information to come,
Okay.
in the winter. We'll take a look at the winter benchmark. Sound good?
Yeah.
We should have a better reading on kind of where buildings, how they're investing the intervention money too. So that's still kind of evolving. So we should have some better ideas about how that's going.
Narcy, did you want to say anything? Because I have a comment or two.
Just listening at this point, still processing. Thank you for
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah. So I looked over this afternoon and printed out some of this, and I've been on the board for a while, and looking at the data, and I understand COVID. I understand, kinder, first, second grade, and maybe third grade. And I know that the other kids have been affected. But when I go to the middle schools, especially Neil Armstrong, and I'm looking at the reading, and it's significant. For me, it's significant how far they're behind. And they shouldn't be that far behind, regardless of COVID. They shouldn't. And so I kept saying to myself, why are they so behind? Is it the materials? Is it poverty? Is it cultural? Is it staff? Is it, we assess the kids, but have we ever had someone come out from outside, assess our staff and say, is there something systematically wrong or are there strengths here? Are there weaknesses here? Because it seems like there's a good portion of kids that I don't have the answer. I have the questions. I don't have the answer. And I'm not asking anybody to do anything more than they're doing. Everybody's overworked in that. But I do have to say, we have an outside person evaluate our superintendent. But I've never heard of anyone taking and evaluating the staff of a school district to weigh the strengths, the weaknesses, and I know it's an evolving organization in that, but I am really puzzled. Forget about the year and a half with COVID, which I know we can't, but I look at that Neil Armstrong and the math and that, and there's something wrong here. For me, there's something wrong, and I've been on the board, and I know you can't give an answer, Dave or John or that, but I'm just scratching my head. I don't know, I'm just throwing out a question, and I don't expect an answer tonight, but I am really puzzled. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say. I'm puzzled, and I appreciate everybody's efforts, and and I know the teachers are working really hard, but is there something else here? Is there something else that our kids are so far behind?
No, I appreciate that you mentioned the teachers are working hard, because John and I both walk through all of those classrooms, and we see those teachers teaching, and they're doing good work. So I think there's the question that you're asking is more a systemic question. I just want to make sure I put that out there, that our staff are working.
Yeah, they are.
I walk in the classrooms, I see the teaching, I see excellent teaching going on, but the question is still the results that we're getting are not what we'd like. So how do we begin to address that? And I'm fine with that question. I just want to clarify that when you say when you use the word something is wrong, I just want to clarify that teachers are doing great work. And I think principals, in particular, Miss Kelly, and they are doing very good work. I know they pushed out, they're right in the middle of a survey, a climate survey. And what I can tell you is, again, they can bring some new data around how parents are feeling about the school and how kids are feeling about the school. And the initial results that I've seen were pretty positive around how people are feeling in the school. That doesn't change the results, I get that. But I just want to, again, point out that there is some change beginning to go here. So, and I'll continue. I wrote your question down, Kate, and I want to do a little thinking about it, and then we'll keep rolling from there, because of, again, the results we saw tonight are we have work to do, and there's nobody saying anything different. And yes, part of it is we definitely saw some changes between the last time we assessed and now, but even before there were issues. I mean, there were too many interventions. So we all know that we have work to do.
I have a question. Are the particular scores in comparison, how are they compared to other similar schools with same demographics, size? Are we just, is it a pattern statewide or nationwide, or is?
So what I think I would say, not everybody's using the same assessments we are, but what I think I saw from our the report that ODE put out is we're lagging compared to other districts around us. I don't know if I can yet make the comparison, and I think that's probably something we can look at coming forward. But I would say that I don't think that we're achieving at a rate that we could be. As I look at other districts around us, I think we're lagging. So there's work for us.
And in regards to what Kate mentioned a little earlier ago, has there ever been an external assessment from? I've done that throughout my career, where something's just not quite. So we bring an external to just come and do an assessment to see. I know you talked about climate or culture, I think I said, but it's just a facility, or, does it have enough windows, sun? I don't know.
I think I got to do some more thinking on that, because of when you say that to evaluate, what are you evaluating? Are you evaluating the curriculum? Are you evaluating the instruction? Because as a person who evaluates instruction, I know there's a million different opinions about that. And we have an evaluation system that we use to try and clarify what is good instruction. I just need to think on that a little bit, because I'm not sure what we're already doing as a system to evaluate the performance of our teachers in our building. I'm not sure who's going to come in and have a better look at that. So I don't know. I just need to think on that a little bit more. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying I'm not sure. I know we are lagging. There's some things we need to improve on. I just think we already have the right things going on to begin to make those improvements. We are going through a literacy adoption. And so, I mean, I think the one thing that I would be looking at is what is the curriculum that we're going to give our teachers, and what is the instruction that they're going to be doing over the next decade around reading. And when we adopted our literacy adoption back in 2012 or somewhere in that range, the world was a different place. There was still an argument between whole language and explicit phonics, and there is no argument anymore about whole language or explicit phonics. Explicit phonics is certainly, and so us picking a new adoption that highlights that, and then bringing in kind of aligning professional development so that we're teaching with this new curriculum in a way that is excellent. I mean, I think we have this opportunity up in front of us to do some of that alignment that I think Kate was kind of talking about.
Yeah, Dave, I didn't want to, I hesitated to bring it up, but the problem is that when I read the data, I was asking myself, as a board member, being on the board so long, is there something that's missing and I, there's a lot of factors, it's feast or famine with funds for school districts. There's, new teachers come in, other teachers go out, but I just wanted to ask myself, what's happening? And I do not want anyone to walk away from this meeting thinking that I don't value and appreciate and understand how hard everybody in the organization is working. It's when I go in and I come in to do a little reading once a week and see a teacher with 3 different screens going on. It looked like she was in a TV station. It was like, oh my God. But I do, as a board member, have to say, am I asking the right questions? Am I, is there something here? And there may be absolutely nothing, but I'm concerned like we all are. And I know you guys will all do the best of your ability. So I just want you to know that there's no finger pointing or anything. I'm just concerned and trying to ask the question, what else can we do? How else can we help?
No, and I appreciate the question because we do have to ask it, but I just wanted to clarify kind of where that question was pointed. So.
Well, maybe pointing at me, should I rob a few banks? I don't know. All right, if there's no other questions, we'll move on. So we have one action item tonight, and it's the Douglas Street lease agreement. And Eileen, I think you're going to present that, correct?
So tonight we have the Douglas Street lease agreement extension. The original lease agreement we started 5 years ago. It's in the Forest Grove Shopping Center off of Douglas Street. And we originally moved it from the Tuality space that's now the dialysis center. They tore down the old buildings where we used to have our transition program. And so now we're over at Douglas Street, the side part of the Forest Grove Shopping Center, where we've, when we first moved over there, we put a lot of investment in trying to ensure that it's the right space and a good space that works for both the transition program and the companion program. This lease extension would extend the lease for 5 years. It does increase the base monthly rent to $3,700 a month. The original rent was $3,150 per month, and that was set 5 years ago, and they have not changed it since. So the big component of this extension is the Forest Grove Shopping Center would like to increase the rent to $3,700 per month with an annual escalation. That is the lesser of annual CPI or 6%. So it would not be static year over year moving forward. At this time, what we're looking for is we're recommending the board to approve this lease extension as attached and with the terms that I just talked about. All other terms and conditions in the lease remain the same.
Questions for Eileen?
Yeah, so did you say CPI or 6%? It's the lower of the two, Eileen?
Right, the lesser of the two. Mm-hmm.
Lesser of the two, and okay, because 6% is pretty hefty, right?
Yes, that's why we did a cap on CPI, so it doesn't get too crazy if things change.
And the CPI is, I don't know, what is it, 2 to 4 or something?
Depending, this year and last year it was pretty high.
Yeah.
I was looking at kind of what the CPI was over the last 5 years to see kind of what that compared to this rent increase. And if I take the accumulation of the last 5 years, it's 17%.
Yeah, okay.
So, the CPI is 15%. This lease increase is 17%. So we're a little bit higher than the last 5 years of CPI. But this would lock us in at no more than CPI moving forward.
Okay, no more than, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah. Okay.
And that's every year.
Every year it would increase by that.
And
Yeah.
and would we just be signing a year-to-year lease?
This would be a 5-year extension.
Uh-huh.
So then every year we would get with Forest Grove Shopping Center to set that CPI amount.
Yeah.
So we would agree upon that rate.
Yeah.
You have a termination clause though, right?
There's termination clause on like funding and, you know, if something happens. So we do have some language in there. So we're not locked in for 5 years, but we have put quite a bit of an investment in originally to transform that space. So it'd be hard to find another space that would meet our needs at this time.
Mhm. Right. So Eileen, the increase, if we agree to this, the increase, I think you said 3150 to 37. So is that 550 times, right? 12 months. I mean, that's
17% increase from what we were paying.
Yeah. So it's around what, $6,000, a little over $6,000 per year, and then on top of that-
$600.
Yeah, and then on top of that is another next year, whatever the CPI is, and so over the 5 years, it, you know, what is it? Maybe I don't even know, $25,000 maybe or something.
Potentially.
Ballpark of that, right? Over 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Well, we were thinking, Mark, maybe you could go negotiate this for us.
Yeah.
You should have seen the number they first came back at. This
Really?
is pretty good.
Really? Okay.
It was a 33% increase
Oh
is
my
what we
gosh.
originally wanted. So
Oh my gosh.
17%, we're doing okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's agree to that then.
Well, there's not a lot of places that
No, I know.
support this program for the kids, which is an excellent program, but
Yeah, and the space is good and everything. So,
yeah,
yeah.
the location is excellent. It just
yeah.
is, but you know, we're sort of in a tough spot right now because there's nothing else available. Plus what you said, Eileen, that, you know, we've already put a lot of money into the facility. So yeah.
Okay.
And any other questions for Eileen? Okay, I will make the motion to approve the lease extension contract for the transition program at the Douglas Street location. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Further discussion? All right, Mark,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Narcy,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. The motion passes. Thanks so much, Eileen.
Thank
We
you.
had a lot to present tonight. This has been just amazing, all this information. The future action items is the Oregon School Board Association election information that's in your packet. It's the candidates in our region for OSBA positions and the legislative policy positions. And there's also the future board items. And I'm trying to use 2 computers, but my other computer decided to quit. So anyway, you can look at those. Is there any questions?
No, none for me.
Okay. All right. If there is no further questions, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 8:13 p.m.
Thanks, everybody. I know this is a long one.
Yeah.
Night.
Yeah.
night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
Thank